Hello everybody, I am the Dire Duck. Well, it is finally here. After a year of waiting with nearly no news, Glitch have finally delivered onto us a trailer for the Gaslight District, a gothic crime drama about a family of undead gangsters trying to find their place after the world has ended. And predictably enough, that is what we're going to be talking about today. So strap yourselves in as we first take a look at the trailer itself. I'll tell you what I think about it, and finally we shall end it all with some good old speculation. Stick around for that bit, trust me, I have a lot of juicy info for you. But before we begin, get ready to stab that like button and drown that subscribe button so I can eke out a miserable existence on this chaotic platform. So, the trailer opened with a load of generic ghouls whispering all sorts of nonsense to themselves, to others, and even some bugs in this damp, rotting city. However, it is soon shown that some bugs are a lot bigger than others, with a collection of wonderful bugmen that look straight out of Lovecraft's Sweet Dreams. We then get a quick collection of shots showing our cast looking concerned, except Melancholy Hill, who is looking rather demented. If I would hazard a guess, this is their initial reaction to the horrifying situation they now find themselves in. However, we also see a quick flash of a two-sided brain with some eldritch text at the bottom. Now, this text is seemingly unreadable right now, however, as we get more information, I will try and translate it for you. It is clear of some lore significance, hinting at something important later down the track. We also see an egg with a symbol on it, but not the same symbol we saw on the obelisk. Again, clearly of some importance. We next see a drowned city, suggesting that either part of the Gaslight District is underwater, or they're on an island because the rest of the world has been flooded, which hints at something we'll discuss later. After that, we have another image with that symbol again, with more currently unreadable text, but again, I'm sure this will hold some significance that we will get to later. Next up, we have some lovely food that our denizens are probably eating. Clearly, Breadhead, one of our main cast, thought that food looked rather unpleasant, as he decided to munch down on a car instead, on what looked to be a ruined highway. We next see the quote-unquote angel, being the starving crow with the halos on top that we have seen in a load of the teasers. This is quickly followed by a quick shot of another of our main characters, Mud, looking all shifty in what appears to be a store. Presumably he's trying to steal something, being criminal gangsters after all.
I love stealing, I love taking things.
Following from that, we get a rather striking shot of what appears to be an angelic robot standing guard, with another one of the angelic crows giving us a good stare. His pupil being a cross, so yeah, crows are definitely associated with God in some form. Though, it seems this robot later gets himself into a fight with Melancholy Hill's father, Ken the Butcher. We then get a shot of a dead sperm whale that seems to have been converted to a seaside house by the Smiling Dead gang, a whale which was caught by the gang going off of later segments. We then get the first piece of proper dialogue during the trailer, with Melancholy Hill asking Ken the Butcher,
"Dad, what do we do now?"
in which Ken gives the rather confident answer of,
You stay by our side, kid.
This again leads credence to the idea that we will get to see the cast's initial reaction to this whole turn of events, though this could alternatively be a line for the episode that is merely cut to look like this. We have some quick shots of the cast interact with each other, being the proper family that they are. However, we also get to see a couple of small details, like Melancholy Hill holding a piece of paper with something to do with the egg written on it. This egg most definitely being that egg with the symbols on it that we saw earlier in the trailer. Conveniently enough, we also get some information about what this egg might be, found to a cutout of a newspaper article, suggesting that humans can be born from this egg, laid by an angel, presumably the crows, and this human holds the power to destroy the Gaslight District as they know it. So therefore, they must be rooted out and destroyed. This is accompanied by a note asking, "Where do I come from?" presumably written by Melancholy Hill herself, which again is very interesting. We next transition to a bunch of action scenes, the first being either a getaway chase or a truck heist. The second being Melancholy rolling down a flight of stairs clutching the precious egg, protecting it from what seems to be a four-legged furry bird creature, which is likely the egg's mother. Finally, we get to see Ken fighting that angel robot from earlier, before we then go back to the truck heist, where we get to see that in this world, blood is purple. Well, purple is the colour of zombie blood in lots of media, so that makes sense. Got to get past those YouTube censors after all. We then cut to Melancholy stomping on a halo in what seems to be a much nicer and heaven-like place. As the music then swells, we get interspersed with loads more violence from, well, everybody. We then get the words lie, cheat, deceive, and finally cement, which are likely the rules you need to follow if you want to survive in this world. We then get another shot of the underwater city with a load of ghouls that have been given the old cement shoes treatment. However, a flash of light then comes in bearing the same pointed symbol that we see on everything else, striking each of them and seemingly reviving all of them from death. The trailer then formally welcomes us to the Gaslight District, with it then resting on a lovely family photo of all of our main cast, along with the whale that they caught and then later made into their home. We then get to see that the release date is set to be the 18th of April 2025, so mark your calendars. The trailer then ends with a look at part of the Gaslight District's map, with several locations being marked down. We have Blackout Burg, which judging from the symbols of the ghoul being used to represent it, is likely a main hub area for the city. We then have Chainport, which is likely where the main cast lives, going off of the large whale head being used to mark it down, with the cast living in said creature. We then have Emberwick, which I presume is very similar to Blackout Burg, and we have Glimmer Grotto, which is seemingly based around an ever-growing tree. Finally, we have Paradise Lost, separated from the rest of the island by a seeming wasteland. However, considering the fact that it is marked with an angel's head, I would guess that this is where most of those crows are based, along with that angel robot that we saw earlier in the trailer.
Smash.
Well, that's all I wrote for the trailer. So, what did I think of it? First of all, this is like nothing we've ever seen before in indie animation, with far more striking and violent visuals than we used to see with Glitch, and with generally a much moodier and more mature vibe. Which again, when compared to the noticeably lighter tones of Digital Circus and even Murder Drones, it is quite the shift, though it is what I'm personally all here for. One thing that stood out to me was the number of action scenes in the trailer, with what looked to be 3 major action set pieces being shown, along with a bunch of smaller ones. I have to wonder if all this will be in the pilot, or maybe Glitch has work done on other episodes than the pilot. It would certainly explain the delays. Alternatively, it could be like the Murder Drone trailer, that included scenes that weren't in the final show, though looking at them, I find it hard to believe. While there is no guarantee that this show will meet our expectations, I myself am very optimistic about it. I have done a lot of digging into this show's history, as you have hopefully seen from my previous videos, which has resulted in me gaining a lot of faith in it, and therefore I will be watching the show's development with great interest. Now, for the part I'm sure you're all more interested in, the speculation and theory crafting. Now, I don't know about the rest of you, but I think I have a pretty good idea as to the show's story and where it's roughly going to go, as the show was not shy about showing us a lot of its lore details. First up, I think the most important element to discuss is that egg. The egg that is clearly going to be a major plot point throughout the series, with it being laid by the angels themselves. So, for the big question, what is in that egg? Well, as shown earlier in that newspaper, a human can be spawned from the egg every 10,000 years, with that human having some sort of immense power if they are capable of destroying the Gaslight District itself. Now, I think it's pretty clear that Melancholy Hill is one of those prophesied humans that's born from one of those eggs. I'd imagine Ken the Butcher acquired the egg and raised Melancholy as his own. You want some proof of this? We have a shot of a burning picture with a baby version of Mel being held by one of the robots, named Temperance, right next to an open egg, which is also a pretty big indicator. Though, the show could be doing some serious gaslighting, which would be on brand. This scene could be about her finding out about her origins and then rejecting her divinity in favour of her found family, or something along those lines. Though, interestingly, we also have a shot of Mel trying to take out one of those eggs from an angel. Now, the question is, what does the Smiling Friends gang want with the egg? I can see it going a few ways. The first one being if the egg is allowed to be hatched and raised by the angels. Then the human born from the egg can provide some form of salvation or absolution for the denizens of the Gaslight District. However, due to the fact that the Smiling Dead are a bunch of malicious criminals who also need to like their new lives, then they could be trying to steal the egg to prevent this form of salvation from occurring. After all, when they mention it in the newspaper about destroying the Gaslight District as we know it, that does not necessarily mean that everything will be literally destroyed. I think the phrasing of this is deliberately left open for interpretation, so maybe things will just change for the better if this egg person is allowed to do their thing. However, criminal gangs typically do better if things are generally terrible. Just look at our own real life history. So, this will provide some motive for our criminal gang to actually try and prevent the bettering of this place, if this is indeed the case. Despite all appearances, this scenario would still paint the angels as the good guys and our main cast as the villains of this story, which will make a nice change. They are gangsters after all. Though, who's to say all these angels and whatnot are actually the work of God? After all, God and his angels looking far more eldritch horror-like this time around. Though, if you know how the angels were depicted in the actual Bible, then you'll know they weren't exactly normal looking, but at the very least, they didn't look like this. So, while we could have a god here, it might not be the one we know of. Or if it is, then God was a lot more Lovecraftian than we first thought, which is for sure the vibes that Part-Time Seagull was trying to give off here, with the visuals, the insect people, and the fact that it is set on a decaying island surrounded by water. Speaking of which, it seems that the Gaslight District was not just some normal island, but the seeming high ground that wasn't swallowed up in some sort of flood. As seen in the trailer, we see a whole city being firmly underwater, suggesting that a giant flood washed over everything, with what would become the Gaslight District being just high enough to avoid such a fate. Now, when has God flooded the world before? Oh yeah, Noah's Ark. In the story, God tells Noah to build an ark to save himself, his family, and 2 of every animal species from the great flood that he sends down in order to cleanse the world of wickedness. Sound familiar? Though it seems God has missed a spot this time around, though maybe this is by design. Perhaps God has given up on humanity once again, and therefore has tried to purge the world of wickedness with another one of his floods. However, it seems some yet remain, who are now trapped on this island to suffer forever. Or maybe these are the people that were left behind when the rapture came. Finally, let's talk about those sentences written in those symbols. After a while of working them out and seeing what other people have come up with, I think I now have the translations. Going over all of them, the first set of symbols reads, "Fill your parents' car with bees." Which is odd to say the least. But considering we're getting all religious like, what do bees symbolize in the Bible? Well, they can mean quite a few things, from conveying God's blessing and love, things of value, or even Christ himself. So I guess the sentence would then be, fill your parents' car with God's love or things of value. Maybe it's in a twisted sense, like fill your gangster parents' car with valuables, or something like that. I'd be interested to hear what you all think in the comments. However, the other set is far more substantial, translating to, the body of he who bears the mark of the hand shall suffer injury, shall feel pain, shall witness death, but is forever tethered to the soul upon the injury. The body will persist, bolstered by the mark, it will restore itself, but never to completion. Upon death, the seal will awaken and bind the soul to the body once more. The body of he who bears the mark of the hand has become a tomb for his soul, evermore and evermore. I think this one is much clearer. It is describing the process of how and why no one dies in the Gaslight district, this being due to the mark of the hand. So, we finally have a name for this symbol that we've been seeing everywhere, the mark of the hand. Those who bear the mark will have their souls shackled to their bodies, preventing them from dying and passing on. The mark of the hand, eh? Let's crack open the Bible again and see if that means anything. Ah, here we are. The worship of false powers, 666. The mark of the beast. Uh-oh. That isn't good. So, in the end time, the fallen prophet will mark people on their right hand and or forehead. This mark will identify them as belonging to the kingdom of the beast. So yeah, it is likely this mark that is reviving everybody. So our cast are really screwed up big time, and God really has abandoned them if they're in this situation. However, notably, there is a similar but different mark found on the angel's eggs, having 3 points when compared to the 5 on the mark of the hand, while also being the other way up. If Mel did indeed spawn from that egg, then that might make her different from the rest of our cast, and make her the key to breaking this cycle, one way or another, which I'm sure will be the source of intrigue and tension during the story. Digging a little deeper into this, Revelations 13 does state that 2 creatures will rule during the end of the world, them being the beast of the sea, or the Antichrist, cough cough water oceans cough cough, and the other being the beast of the earth, or the false prophet, cough cough the Gaslight district cough cough. The question remains, however, who is the Antichrist and who is the false prophet in this story?
It was me!
That is something we still need to figure out. Cough cough, if the theory indeed holds any water whatsoever. So basically, if you have this mark of the beast, you have screwed up very badly, it being an unforgivable sin in God's eyes, invoking their wrath in a lake of fire. But considering the fact that our main cast are not all burning in the lake of fire right now, maybe the mark of the beast is protecting these sinners and keeping their souls on earth. Either that, or this is all more metaphorical, and the hellhole they're currently living in is meant to be said lake of fire. After all, when you look at that map, they all seem to be on an island surrounded by a lake that just seems to end at its edges. There is definitely a lot more to unpack here, so I'll have to delve deeper into all of this, which means you might be getting a sequel video. Now, I may be completely wrong about most of my speculations, but at the very least, I am confident I'm pointing in the right direction, so maybe you can all build upon this foundation that I have set. Either that, or I am thinking way too hard about this, and the show is just going to be a down-to-earth zombie gangster show, rather than all this high-concept religious stuff. But what do you think? How do you feel about the trailer overall? Are my theories correct, or am I just being gaslit by the show? And finally, how well do you think the show will actually do, considering how different it is from the norm? Let me know in the comments section below. Anyway, that'll be all from me. Remember to like and subscribe and do all the other things that every other YouTuber tells you to do. I would really appreciate it. And yeah, check out my other videos, some of which are even good. Maybe. Either way, I hope to see you all again very soon. Bye bye.